Hi, this is another preview for what we're going to be covering on the Reviewing Network Live, and just like we did last week, it's time to cover the top 5, the weekend box office, and we'll also look at some of the other movies in the top 10 as well, or some other interesting stories as well within the box office, but our main focus is going to be specifically on the top 5 movies of the week, so let's go ahead and get right to it, because we have some very interesting bits of topics to talk about within the top 5 itself. It is a very interesting top 5, to say the least. So let's go ahead and just get right to it. Let's start off with the number 5 film, which still hanging in there after 5 weeks, only dropping 13% from last week. Disney Pixar's Elemental dropped down one spot from 4 to 5. $8.7 million this weekend, bringing its total gross up to $125.3 million. For a movie that had the lowest opening in Pixar's history, right next to Toy Story, the first Toy Story in 1995, this thing has been holding on steady. I mean, this film has not only quashed the rumors of Pixar's demise, but it's become Disney's highest-grossing animated film since Frozen 2 came out. I mean, this thing has surpassed $300 million worldwide so far. It's surpassed all the expectations everybody had for it, and and like I said before, I keep saying it every week, but I gotta say it again. I'm really happy people are coming around to this movie. They're finding this film. It's a really good movie. It's a very entertaining film. It's a part of a really good stretch of movies that Pixar has done recently, and quite frankly, it's been probably the best story for Disney this summer, other than Guardians of the Galaxy and The Little Mermaid doing well. But it's certainly doing a lot better than the next film we're going to talk about here, which number 4 on the list, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, dropped again, another 56% from the previous week. $12 million, its total gross is $145.3 million, which wouldn't be a bad total for the film had it not grossed over $300 million, and the film, in terms of worldwide gross, just passed that budget, but it still needs to make a lot of money back to make up that massive budget that it had. I mean, regardless of how I feel about the movie, I still really like it, but I can't really argue with people that it is a flop. It is a film that you don't put that much money into an Indiana Jones movie like that and hope to get the same results that you would get from Star Wars in it. But I will say, though, the conversation about Indiana Jones, and there's been some people in particular that I've been kind of, let's just say, a little bit too upset about when I hear people try to compare this to other movies that have come out recently, specifically one person in particular. But we'll get to that one in just a little bit once we get to the number 1 film. But Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, $12 million this weekend, $145 million after 3 weeks. I mean, it's not going to make its money back. It's not going to make its money back, but at least it's made back its budget. But it still has a long way to go to become somewhat profitable for Disney. And with that said, let's go ahead and move on to number 3, last week's number 1 movie, which was Insidious: The Red Door, which, as expected, had a big drop-off compared to the previous week. But considering that it's a horror movie, a 61% drop-off is not the worst. I mean, it still made $13 million. It's made $58 million. The budget on this was only $16 million, and that already made double its budget back last week when it was number 1. So it's all profit from here on out. So this movie can keep dropping off, but it'll still be considered a hit regardless. I mean, it's still made a ton of money, and we're probably going to get another Insidious movie once the strike ends, of course, because now we're in the midst of a writers and actors strike. So Insidious: The Red Door, it's going to keep making money as we go forward. But that brings us to number 2, the summer's biggest surprise, and it's for a number of reasons. And we could talk a lot about this particular movie's success, because there are some questions to be asked about it. But let's see what the number 2 movie is. And that movie is, of course, The Sound of Freedom, which actually improved from last week, bringing in $27 million. I mean, $27 million compared to last weekend when it made about, what was it, $19 million? Yeah, $19 million. But in 2 weeks, this movie has brought in $85.5 million for a film that nobody really knew what it was until a couple weeks before this. This is a pretty interesting story of how this movie has become successful, but it also has its question marks because of the things that they were doing for this particular film. One of the things that you're seeing here is that they're doing this thing called a pay-it-forward system, where you provide free tickets for someone to claim and watch it at the movie theaters. So that money is removed as a barrier for people to watch the film. So it's strange. People are buying the tickets for this, but at the same time, you have to wonder, are other people actually using the tickets, or are they just buying the tickets so that the money can just go straight into the box office thing, and you don't have to know what, yeah, you don't actually have to see the movie? Because there have been videos out there where they show theaters that are showing The Sound of Freedom that are supposed to be sold out, and you look inside the theater and there's nobody in there. These are like sold out screenings. There's screenings where you're supposed to see a ton of people when you go to get your reserved tickets for this movie, and when you look at these videos, there's nobody in the theater. So it's a weird thing going on. I actually looked at the theater listings for Sound of Freedom at my theater just to see what it looked like, and it looked like there were seats taken like a normal big theater outing. But I haven't seen this movie in theaters, and nor do I really think I want to see it in theaters. I think I am just going to wait it out and see what happens if I do want to see it at some point. But on that listing that I told you about, the theater seats are like a big new release when the first week it comes to theaters. I mean, the seats are reserved and packed in most areas, but the question is whether or not are people actually going to see the movie, or are they just buy the tickets so this movie can keep making money? And that's a big question that a lot of people like myself have been wondering. And like I said, there's videos online where there's evidence that that's clearly the case. It just depends on I don't know. Like I don't really know what the overall answer for this is, and we're gonna find out in the next couple of weeks how long this can keep going, because this is a very interesting story. This is one of the biggest success stories of the summer, but it's gonna lead to a lot of questions about would a regular movie studio consider doing this and have nobody really come to see their movies because of this or not. It just raises so many questions, to quote Val Kilmer in Batman Forever. So I don't know. It's a very weird situation going on here, and like I said, I don't know if their plan on this is to try to do something different so that other studios can look at this and go, "You mean we can have this type of thing, and people don't have to be the theaters don't have to be sold out, and we can just pretend that the movie is making money for us, but is even though there's nobody sitting in there?" Like, I feel like that's what they're trying to do with this. Or maybe they're just inflating the numbers to give conservatives and Republicans a win in this case, because this movie is being heavily endorsed by conservatives, by Republicans, and not to say that people that are Democrats are not liking the film either. It's got a good percentage on Rotten Tomatoes at 72%. It is getting good reviews, and a lot of people that I talk to who are people that are, Democrats and Democrats and liberals, they are saying that most of them are saying that it is a good movie. So I'm very curious to see it for myself. Like I said, I'm not going to go rush out to see it immediately because there's just too many other movies that I have my focus on. But at one point, I will check it out just to see if it actually is worth all the buzz. So regardless, this is still a very interesting story. This thing's going to make $100 million pretty soon, especially by next week. Like, the fact that this movie was the #1 movie on the 4th of July, and then on July 10th and July 11th, before Independence Day, before the #1 movie came out, is still really impressive. It's impressive to think that, and I'm going to be very curious to see what kind of legs this movie has. I mean, are people still going to keep coming even as these bigger movies keep coming out? Like I said, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. It's a very interesting situation that we have here with this particular film, but regardless, Sound of Freedom #2 still hanging in there, actually gaining an audience. So, which brings us to the #1 movie. Now, it's both a surprise, but at the same time, it's not. Let me tell you what the #1 movie is, and that is, of course, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Now, the surprise is not that it's the #1 movie. I think everybody was expecting it to be the #1 movie at the box office, no question about it. But the money that it made is what I think is the biggest surprise. I would have thought that after Top Gun Maverick came out, there would be kind of an after effect with Tom Cruise's latest film. I think Tom Cruise has been heavily supportive of the cinema experience. I mean, he goes online talking about these recent blockbusters, stuff like he talked about Barbie and Oppenheimer, and then Indiana Jones, saying that you should go out to theaters and endorse these movies. In fact, if you go to this movie and see it on the big screen, it starts off with the director, Christopher McQuarrie, and Tom Cruise saying, "We make these movies to be experienced on the big screen, so sit back and enjoy this." And, for a guy like that, like, he still is fully committed to the theatrical experience, and the movie is good. I think it's good. It's not great, though. I think that's one of the main reasons why this film had a lesser box office to it, but the box office numbers for this is $56.2 million. because it opened up that's the weekend gross, but after 5 days, because it opened up on Wednesday, it's grossed $80 million, which is a pretty good number, kind of in line with the other Mission Impossible movies. But here's the thing that everybody keeps forgetting about. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 has a budget of over $290 million. It's another one of these big, huge, over-budgeted movies that, has this, is that we keep criticizing films like The Flash and Indiana Jones and Fast X. And when it comes to Mission Impossible, though, everybody just kind of just puts it to the side because, we know it's going to make its money back worldwide. I mean, worldwide is the main focus that we're focusing on here, and it's like, regardless, it did fall short of expectations after a lower opening weekend than anticipated. I mean, yeah, the film's got critical acclaim, and more than likely, it's going to have legs at the box office. No question about it, because I think because of what happened last year with Top Gun Maverick, but I'm the one that believes that as much as I think this is going to have legs and should have legs, this movie has a lot of stiff competition coming up, especially next week. I mean, we've got Barbie, we've got Oppenheimer coming out next week. The Haunted Mansion's coming out in a couple of weeks, which is not going to ding into too much of Mission Impossible's box office numbers, but it's still a big movie, and Disney really needs that to succeed after the summer they've been having. Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem's coming out after that, and then the Meg 2, The Trench, is coming up shortly afterward. I mean, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 could have legs in the weeks to come. I don't think it's going to have the strong legs that something like Mission Impossible Fallout did, when you had a stretch of movies that didn't quite live up to the expectations, and that allowed Mission Impossible to keep bringing in numbers in here. But Barbie and Oppenheimer are real threats coming in next weekend, so these big movies that are in the top 5 right now will more than likely get pushed out of the way, and Barbie and Oppenheimer I could probably see having longer box office results because of that. And Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 could be on the same pathway as well. And it's a weird situation. And I like the movie, like I said in my review. I thought it was just good, not great. I thought the first half of the movie was really slow at first, but at the same time, the action sequences and the stunt work in this movie, I think, are more than worth it to see on a big screen. And if you're going to see this movie, I'd see it this weekend because that's the only time these movies are going to get these IMAX. A movie like this is going to get the IMAX theaters because Oppenheimer is coming up next week. So if you're going to go see this movie, I'd recommend checking it out this week, because you should see it on an IMAX screen, and I think it's definitely worth it on an IMAX screen. But that also brings me back to the thing I wanted to talk about beforehand about the article that I saw trying to compare this to Indiana Jones. And Deadline Hollywood, there's this guy on there who does the box office, Anthony D'Alessandro, I think his name is. Let me see if I can find it. Anthony D'Alessandro, yeah, that's his name. But so on Saturday, they post the early results from the box office. They post the early results from when. From the Friday numbers, and there was an article on Deadline Hollywood from this guy talking about the overall box office, and the fact that the matter of the fact that Mission Impossible did not look like it was performing well here. But the article said was titled Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 seeking $78 million 5-day US. And then it follows up with why sequel is in better position than Indiana Jones. Now, this wouldn't be a big deal, except every single week since Indiana Jones has come out, this guy has found a way to just find ways to bring Indiana Jones back in here. He must have a hate boner for Indiana Jones. Not to say that and I'm not defending the movie in this case here. Like, Indiana Jones is a bomb because of the budget, but at the same time, the fact that you keep bringing this up and keep bringing up other movies that really do not have an effect on this. Like when Indiana Jones came out on the first weekend, he said, let's compare this to another bomb, Superman Returns, which Superman Returns made more money than Indiana Jones did on 4th of July weekend in 2006. But in this case, like every single weekend, he finds a way to cram in Indiana Jones in every single article that he puts out in terms of the Saturday box office updates. And I'm just looking at this and going, like, Indiana Jones must have done something to you. Like, did you feel? Are you like that South Park episode? Did you get raped by? Did Indiana Jones rape you or something like that? Like it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Why this guy has to keep putting in Indiana Jones is comparisons in every single week, and and it always seems like he always has a long conversation talking about why Indiana Jones is a flop and why people who like Indiana Jones should be stupid to think that way. Not to that extreme, but at the same time, that's kind of what I feel like whenever I read some of that stuff here. And I read Deadline Hollywood a lot. I always go to them first for the box office results because, most people, I want to see how these movies do on their first weekends. But I don't know. That just really irked me about it. I mean, he's right to criticize the fact that Indiana Jones has not been performing well. It is a flop, but at the same time, though, it's just kind of like why do you have to keep cramming it in with other movies? Like when Indiana Jones is like the fact that he didn't compare something like Indiana Jones and the Flash, when the Indiana Jones came out and they brought comparisons up to the Flash, but he had to say, well, here's why the Flash is completely different from what Indiana Jones had to go through here, and it's not because of what you think it is, but it's like the stuff that it should be. The Flash had to deal with a studio executive, the studio heads that thought this was going to be the next Dark Knight, trying to pretend like Ezra Miller was this gentle soul instead of being the hardened criminal that he actually was. Is trying to say that the CG is supposed to be bad on purpose. It's supposed to be bad on purpose, guys. You just don't get it, and doesn't bring that up on there, but he brings up the fact that the Flash has more build to it. I mean, the Flash has more levity to it than Indiana Jones. Nobody cares about Indiana Jones anymore. Nobody does whatsoever. It's just dude, it's just like stuff like that just really irks me. That really irked me when I saw that on Saturday, and I just had to really it was just annoying that they had to do something like that. I mean, it just got on my nerves, and like I said before, I'm not saying Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is going to bomb. It's not going to bomb. It's going to make its money. It will make its money back after the worldwide grosses, but the fact that we're not having the same conversation when Mission Impossible made less money than Indiana Jones did, it made just a little bit more than The Flash did, and it made less than Fast X, which were all high-budgeted, over $300 million budgeted films, but how dare I say that this movie that this movie will underperform because it's not hitting the criteria of its budget. I mean, this is a film that, it's just there's a thing that I think people have called selective hatred. Like they look for and selective liking stuff. I don't know what I don't know what I think it is, but it's just I think people just select different things to be like, oh, we're gonna hate on this, we're gonna like this, we're gonna hate on this specific thing in particular, and it's this summer in particular. I've seen it more and more. I really don't trust Rotten Tomatoes anymore, honestly, because I've said it in other times. Film criticism really has devolved in 2023 when we're focusing on Indiana Jones, and one of the reviews for it has to be, well, can't figure out why Nazis are so bad. And it's just if you really need to know why Nazis are bad people, and if you need a description of why Nazis are bad people, then you clearly are part of the problem with the world. I mean, it's just it's like flat earthers when I saw a tweet earlier today when somebody put up an old tweet from a flat earther who said we have flat earthers all across the globe, and the next comment below says, say that again slowly. It's just it's like people want to start a conversation. It's like what Alfred said in The Dark Knight. Some men aren't thinking logically. Some men just want to watch the world burn. And I think that a lot of these people just want to watch the world burn. And it's just they're going to do whatever it takes to make you hate life and hate whatever you want to like out there. It's just it just really irks me. And it really did get on my nerves, especially this weekend hearing that. But like I said, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, I said it before, it's not gonna have a hard time making its money back, especially with the worldwide grosses. But for an $80 million 5-day start for a film that has a $290 million budget domestically, that is not a good thing, really. It's not a really good sign going forward. And it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna make its money back with worldwide. But I don't know. I mean, I thought like everybody else, I thought maybe this would have a Top Gun effect. I thought people would come in to see this movie after being amazed by Top Gun Maverick the year before, but it just hasn't been shown that, unfortunately, and it's a shame because there was a lot to really like about this movie. But maybe they also saw what I saw too. Maybe they thought that this film started off slow. There really wasn't and didn't really get going until the second half of the movie, and that was probably too little, too late for them. But like I said, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning will make its money back in some way, shape, or form, but I feel like this weekend was its only weekend it's got before the competition arrives next week with Barbie and Oppenheimer. I think it will stick around. I think it will have legs, and I don't know if it's going to actually hold up enough to maybe surpass Fallout, which is at 220 domestically, 220 million. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks, but if I'm Paramount right now, I'd be a little bit concerned that the film didn't open higher here than I would have expected. But then again, that's just me saying that. And, what do I know, I guess? It's just me putting my opinion out there. So that's the top 5. In terms of the rest of the top 10 overall, no real surprises here. Spider-Man's still hanging strong, dropping 24%, up to 368.7 million. Transformers is still holding in very well, just cracking the $150 million mark at 152.7. No Hard Feelings is still hanging in there at 46 million. It's surpassed its budget, I think, of 45 million. Joyride had a big drop off from last week, $2.5 million, bringing in just 10.6 million. And speaking of big flops, Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken dropped 65%, only grossing $1 million and bringing in 14 million this week is for its total so far. But then again, when you lose 1,600 theaters compared to the previous week, that's to be expected. And The Flash, well, interesting story today. According to sources, The Flash is going to make less money domestically than Green Lantern. Just think about that for a second. The Flash, this movie they had high expectations for, is going to make less money than the Green Lantern. The Green Lantern. So, yeah. So that is the weekend box office. Like I said, it's all about Barbie and Oppenheimer next week, which I'm really looking forward to checking both of those movies out. And we'll definitely delve into the box office there, because it should be pretty interesting when you got those two movies opening up. Mission Impossible, we'll find out how big of a drop-off it'll have and how big of a gain that Sound of Freedom will still have. Will Barbie and Oppenheimer actually be able to take some of Sound of Freedom's audiences away, or will this thing continue to keep growing? We'll have to wait and see on that front next week. But like I said, thank you guys for watching this, and we're going to keep doing these little previews up until our full episode preview comes on August the 6th, and our regular show premieres on September the 3rd. If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button, check out some of our other videos, and I'll see you guys next time. So until then, take care.